Okay, now let's move to our final session, committers panel. Yeah, and today I'm very thanks to many committers to come to Japan. So I'm really excited. Yeah, it is very rare opportunity to hear such great members talk. I'm really excited. So we'd like to accept questions from audience via Slido. So please visit www.slide.do and enter event code SEConf Tokyo. And in case you forgot to Wi-Fi, I remind SSID. And the password is Tokyo 2019. Okay, now let's move on to the committer panel contents. So maybe introducing each member is from Marcus is better, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah, please.
I'll start with myself since I haven't actually been on stage yet. My name is Marcus Merrill, and I am the co-chair along with Andrew and Ashley of the conference organizing committee for the Selenium Project. I've been a test automation architect for 18 years. I've done a lot of jobs all over the world for stuff, but mostly right now I'm the director of technical services for Sauce Labs. But right now I'm a member of the Selenium community. I'm going to let the panel introduce each other. I'm going to start with Manoj Kumar. I'm going to let Manoj introduce Titus, and then Titus is going to decide who he introduces next. And then it will continue like that. This is a new thing we're trying.
Wait, what?
If you need help, I can step in.
Check. Titus. He loves mangoes. He loves orange. He loves wearing sweet. That's what he's doing. And interestingly, I could think something that I've read about him somewhere. He studied, he went to Naval Academy, studied nuclear engineering, and doing some ballistic missiles. And then now he loves page object pattern and loves Slack. And he maintains the Ruby bindings for Selenium and also the lead for the water project. That's Titus.
And I'm his boss.
These are all true things. Yes, and I'm going to introduce Dave Hafner. I know, right? I met Dave through his Elemental Selenium website and course a number of years ago. It was in Ruby at one point, and then he slowly started adding other languages to that. And he's got a lot of great books and tutorials and things out there in the world. And now he has joined Applitools last year and is now working on the Selenium IDE. And I do not hold that too much against him.
Oh, thank you. Let's see. I'll introduce Jim. Jim Evans, a man who really shouldn't need an introduction, but I'll give him an introduction. We stand on the shoulder of giants, and Jim is one of those giants. The creator and maintainer of IE Driver and the C# bindings, C#.net. And I don't know what else to say except thank you for keeping on, because the work you do is really important and means a lot to a lot of people.
Taking one for the team for 9 straight years.
These also remain true statements. I will introduce the gentleman sitting to my right, who is immediately to my right, who my next guest also needs no introduction, or should need no introduction, but his name is Simon Stewart. He has been working on WebDriver in one form or another since 2006. Yes, a long time he's been spending doing browser automation through his time at ThoughtWorks and Google and Facebook and now at Apple. And Deliveroo, yes, he spent time at Deliveroo. He is the architect of the Java language bindings and the Selenium server, as well as the main project lead and general all-around cheerleader. And he's also one of my absolute best friends in the world, and I'm grateful to have known him. And this is my friend Simon.
Thanks, buddy. I think I will introduce the one and only Manoj Kumar, who I've had the pleasure of sharing a stage with twice doing keynotes. He is an accomplished speaker. He is a key part of the steering committee. He has helped with documentation, the websites. He is an absolute superstar, and currently he's at Applitools. And the best thing about Manoj is he's lived in like a million different countries, and he's currently making his way very slowly to Australia.
Manoj? Diego. Oh, that's right. What? That's right. Okay. At some point, Diego and Kazu need to be introduced. Well, or you can just hand the mic and let one do the other.
Okay.
Or
I'll introduce the person who's on my left.
This was a great plan, I'm very certain.
Who needs no introduction, who is local in Japan. Most of you know him. His name is Kazu, and his handle is Kazu Kokoa. Looks like he loves most of the Apple APIs, if I'm not wrong. He's one of the main contributors to the Appium project, mainly the Ruby bindings. So we have the two Ruby superstars out here, and that's Kazu.
Thank you, and Diego. Sorry, I'm not sure you, so can you, Titus, can you help me?
I might be able to if you want.
Yeah, I can absolutely step in. To my right here is my good friend Diego, who I also introduced at the India conference, I think, last year, in a similar setup that Marcus sprung on us.
Good, yeah. Still, I'm sticking with it.
But I'm very pleased that since that time, Diego has joined me at my company, is now working at Sauce Labs. And Diego maintains the Docker containers right now, and also commits a lot to the grid code. So, and Selenium. How can I forget Selenium? That's the one thing I said last time, and I totally forget it this time. Yeah, so he's the project lead for Selenium.
And we just hired him at Sauce Labs.
I already said that.
Okay, got it. I'm busy over here.
So Marcus is not his boss. He's my boss. It's different.
Right, that's right. True statements all. All right. I think everyone knows who everyone is now.
Did we introduce Nozomi? Although he's someone who needs no introduction.
He's running this show.
Because he's running the show. Can I just say a word about that? So the conference being here is such a big deal to me personally, because the conversation to have the conference in Japan started 3 years ago, I think, almost to the day, when I was the program chair and was approached by somebody who was interested in bringing the conference here, and it was a very long series of conversations, and to the point where it was so long that I stepped down as program chair for the conference, and somebody else just stepped in, and this conference still happened, and now we're here. It just blows my mind, and Nozomi is such a critical part of that, because he's been involved in the conversation the whole time. And so I just wanted to say thank you for helping make this a reality, because without you, it wouldn't exist.
Thank you so much. I also couldn't imagine I can do such a big conference. Yeah, many people still sometimes say, I didn't imagine I can really do such thing. Yeah. So even myself, it is very surprising. Yeah. Thank you so much. But But because thanks to many support of various members, I think we can also achieve such great conference. Yeah, actually, it is not only my achievement. So all organizers and sponsors, committers, and attendees' achievement. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. All right, I'm going to kick off from one question from Slido, but I want to take live questions whenever we have them. So please start thinking about questions if you haven't already. But I wanted to ask, first of all, there's an interesting question for Selenium IDE. Probably going to ask Dave this question. For the export code feature, is it possible to create something like the page object model design pattern for the sake of maintainability in our automation?
It's an interesting question. So being able to take an existing test or a suite of tests and export to maintainable code with page objects is not something that we plan to support. Right now, it's a one-to-one matching of you try to accomplish a thing with a command, and it gets exported into the equivalent WebDriver code for that language. To do so in a way that's well maintainable without context of the thing that's being tested or any domain knowledge would essentially, I think, be not only difficult but a mistake. I think that it's because you could spend infinite amounts of time managing that complexity. Not to mention that generating page objects is something that Simon may have an opinion on.
I have many opinions. I was just wondering if you could write an extension for IDE that would allow you to write page objects and have the page objects write their own code.
That's an interesting idea too.
Boom.
Boom.
Solving problems.
Quite a lot is possible with our extensions. It's a phenomenally interesting idea. Or you just have it where you write page objects and then it just outputs code in general and just bypasses the IDE itself. Now we're really getting crazy. So the answer is no. Generally, the questions we get for code export are, when is my language going to be supported? Which is where I thought we were going, but we can table that for later. So no. So the answer is no.
If we run out of questions, we'll ask it. Are there any live questions from the audience? Here in the back. Middle, actually.
Hey guys, cheers again for everything. Hello. So my question is W3C. It's been going on for about 7 years now, thereabouts. What were the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome? What was the most difficult parts you had to go through? And have you reached the aha moment yet where it's, okay, we see the light, the end of it, basically? Or is that yet to come?
So the process of creating the W3C specification took a number of years because we had a number of face-to-face and virtual meetings and discussions about how that specification should look and how certain pieces of it should look, with some fairly heated and contentious discussions from time to time among members of the W3C working group. But the specification went to recommendation, which is the final stage of a W3C specification. It did that last year. Since that time, every driver implementation, WebDriver implementation, has supported the W3C spec to some level. The biggest
apart from PHP.
Well, PHP of course is a language binding that is not part of our project specifically, and so support for the W3C specification will have to come from the maintainers of that project. But the aha moment for me actually came just a few weeks ago, when I was speaking to some of the implementers of the Chrome driver, and I was working with them directly to make sure that their implementation of the last pieces was working correctly, which was the actions endpoint for Chrome. And I'm proud and pleased that they have just turned on for Chrome 75 and Chrome Driver 75. They have turned on the W3C wire protocol as their default protocol in Chrome 75. So when Chrome 75 releases and that Chrome driver releases, then all of the desktop browser versions will use that protocol, and that is sort of the major milestone where we can really simplify our code in our project without having to worry about multiple protocols, and that is the end goal and the dream.
Perfect, thank you.
There was one thing that I was really happy with when we were, three things, when I was working on the spec. First one was when we realized that we didn't have to spec out the local end of the thing. We originally started like, we're going to do both ends, and then we realized like, hang on a second, we just need the bit that's in the browser. And then anyone can come up with this beautiful API or ugly API that does exactly what it needs. The other thing where it's like, hang on a second, we're onto something good here, is where we revisited some of the basic assumptions and actually implemented them cleanly after thinking carefully. And you can see that with the way that we construct new sessions and the way that we handle actions now. And both of those are significantly better for having gone through a standardization process with a room full of nerds who are arguing pretty vociferously for one of different ways, and that process ended up with something that I think we're all pretty happy with.
Do you have any more questions from the audience?
We can answer questions about pop trivia of the 80s if that would help.
Pet Shop Boys, yay or nay?
Yay!
All right, so just a question? All right, I wonder what we can do to make this panel more inclusive.
You know, I would love it to be more inclusive. There is if Ashley was here, it wouldn't be quite so terrible.
Slightly less terrible.
It would be slightly less terrible than it is.
And by the way, this is not a critique of me to you. This is, I'm in this with you, and I am also...
It's something we have struggled with as a project. This panel here are people who have the commit bit or who are on the steering committee, and it turns out that we're finding it really hard to grow new committers, and the committee has been relatively stable for quite a long time. It's really easy to get the commit bit. So the best way we could make this more diverse is to have more committers and a bigger pool of people, and then that would be great. There is work that we need to do in order to reach out to various people and be a bit more forward about it. Kim Creighton from Causa Scene has been very good at pointing out to us that we need to put ourselves into positions where we are uncomfortable and we're not necessarily sure of what we're doing, but we have to do that anyway. Finding the time and the space to do that is very difficult, but it is something that we need to do. We're working on it, but the thing, Angie has a point. I can see her raising a hand. And I would love your input on this.
I'd love Angie's input on this.
Well, I was just going to say, I went to a conference once that was trying to help women contribute to open source, and Ashley and I looked at the Selenium Project and we wanted to contribute, and these guys up here were so supportive and so welcoming, and I think it was a Saturday or Friday, they were really willing to stop whatever it is that they were doing that day to help us. So if anyone's even thinking about it or considering it, I strongly encourage you to do so. It's a great group of people there.
And if you saw Marit's talk earlier, she had some amazing points on how to get more involved. So.
Yep. And, you know, we say this every time, it doesn't have to be code. If you look at our website, you can see we don't know how to do web design, which is a grand irony given what the project does. And apparently we don't know how to write either, because our documentation is growing, but it needs some work. There's loads of ways to get involved. Do come, do make us feel a bit guilty and a bit uncomfortable about not being better and not being more representative. And if you've got ideas,
stand up, Martin.
I had lots of ideas that I shared with everyone on how to contribute.
Yes.
And especially, I hear people complaining about documentation a lot. I'm not saying they're complaining about Selenium documentation.
They are.
But just in general.
They
I'm
would
not.
be
I'm
totally
not.
They are.
I went on the. I was at least able to find the things that I was looking for, because I was looking for, how does your sponsorship work? Do you have information on how to contribute? Because I wanted to find that out for my talk. But everyone agrees that documentation is super important for the adoption of projects and being able to use it. But not very many people are willing to write documentation. So please, please, pretty please, come help us out and write documentation, please. Kudasai.
Anything from the audience? I can get back to the Slido questions. All right. Someone, Toshia, is curious about AI integration in test automation. Could you give us your thoughts about possible interaction between AI technology and the Selenium Project?
Well, I can speak to some of that. There are some interesting things happening in the AI space right now with respect to test automation. There are some interesting projects that specifically can interact with both Appium and Selenium even today, that work with some AI things. I hesitate to name like specific projects and companies and names, because I'm afraid I will leave someone out, and don't want to do that here. But there are, that is a great place where we can embrace the ability of the extensibility of the Selenium project. We have designed the project and the API to allow for people to plug in things like AI-based locators for elements and things of that nature, and it's very possible to do that in all of the existing language bindings that are provided by the Selenium project. And that is something that, while you know, I don't think that we have a lot of designs on doing things for AI directly in the project itself, we will happily support and, you know, do what we can to make it possible for other people and other projects to do exactly that.
Yeah. Did I get that right? Yeah, you got it. Good. I mean, as Jim says, the key areas where I think AI and machine learning will have an impact on Selenium itself is in element location. That just appears to be this sort of endless feast of horror that you sort of start looking at it and then someone changes a page, and maybe a visual locator would work. Maybe the approach that IDE does of multiple fallback locators will work, but there's a lot of space there where you could apply some machine learning and it would be fantastic. There's also things that you could do around Selenium, around your own test runs. So you could take a look and try and identify common sources of flakiness. Like, is it because, you know, at a certain time of day, things go down? And machine learning is really good at just crunching the numbers and going, don't run your tests at 4 o'clock on a Friday because everyone is trying to check in. Or, you know, don't let Simon check in code because he will just break the build. Or things like that.
So tell the story. So I wanted to add one more thing on, like, so specifically machine learning when it comes to locators. My big concern with how I would see that being implemented is that that's going to result in more deterministic testing. If you're essentially saying we're going to allow any of these locators to be acceptable, you're now...
I'm just saying that the translators, you're going really fast.
I'm going too fast. I'm sorry. Yes. In order to make sure that your test has repeatable results, my concern is, depending on how machine learning is implemented, that you might end up going down a path you didn't intend because it was picking something using a machine learning algorithm rather than whatever explicitly you decided. And so I think with a lot of machine learning in testing in general, what is available right now is not sufficient to replace a good test framework written by automated test experts. And so that might change at some point, but for right now, I see it more as buzz than a useful feature in most respects, because it's not enough of a replacement to keep you from doing what you already need to learn now.
Kazu.
Yeah. From Appium side, maybe someone already know, Appium already have the extension to the using an AI locator, and that is a completely extensible way. So dynamically, the Appium can load such module from outside Appium, but I'm not sure that that is become the one of the Appium, because yeah, as Titus said, yeah, that is certainly depends on the logic on the AI. So it's very good to implement as an extensible way, but I also not strongly agree with the include that way into Selenium itself or Appium itself.
Yeah. Sticking on the subject of locators, I would like to, I wanted to see if you could give us your thoughts about future locators, the friendly locators, a little bit about, just sort of, you touched on the key, in your keynote, and it says, what kinds of expression do you think you would use to describe the object? It feels like it's going to be prepositional, above, below.
Yeah, we have to do some exploration of what makes the APIs feel right. But both Tycho and Sahi, which are the sort of sources of inspiration for this, use phrases like below, within, left of, right of. Tycho calls them proximity locators. So that kind of language is probably the kind of language that we will explore as we develop out the APIs.
I guess the follow-up I have with this is a little bit maybe more challenging is, do you believe it is appropriate to hold up Selenium 4.0 for this?
Sure, why not? It's a really, like, the thing with Selenium, with any open source project, is that you don't release on a timeline, you don't release every 6 months, you don't release, you just pick a time where you feel it's appropriate to push the software. We released the alpha because the grid is now functional. I think that's the best way of describing it. It's not particularly stable. I reckon you could make it fall over pretty easily, but we released the alpha with that in. We've got the most basic integration with the Chrome debugging protocol, and in the next alpha that will probably follow through to the other languages. Titus, Jim and myself spent a chunk of time at the conference, because this is like one of the few times we get to see each other face to face, working out what the APIs will look like and how they will feel. So, like an open source project, you push it when it is ready. The friendly locators won't block the Selenium 4 release because it's an additional thing and we can land it in a point release. But I think it would be a really nice feature, and it opens up the door to doing work on fit and finish, where we take the raw WebDriver APIs and we go and take inspiration from the work that Titus has been doing on Water and go, how do we make this really nice for people to write their tests with?
I just wanted to add real quick on locators. Since Water has a really great locator engine, it's essentially a hash map to XPath conversion engine that allows you to specify based on attribute and a number of other things. We have an implementation of that currently in Ruby and with Python. Python has a Water port called Nerodia, and I would like to expand that into other languages if anyone is interested in working on regular expressions, XPath, and locator extensions. let me know, and I will work with you on that.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Simon? All bad things come in threes, or?
I have opinion. I think we will end up doing a lot of this work as JavaScript atoms. So we have consistent behavior that we can share between Ruby, Python, Java, .NET, and JavaScript. So when we land it once, we have the opportunity of landing it globally across the project, which would be super.
Which would also mean the IDE gets it.
Which would also mean the IDE gets it.
Okay, Nomi.
Hi, so on the topic, since you already opened what's needed, and you were talking about contributing, so maybe it could be nice if you share what things are needed across, where are you looking forward for people to contribute in each of your areas?
You each have different areas. I think each of you could answer that question slightly differently. It'd be great. Start with the fact that issues in the Selenium project are labeled with easy or easy for starters. So that's one thing.
Well, so yeah, my opinions are different. Since the code right now for Selenium IDE is separate in a separate repo within the. Sorry.
Slow down, Dave.
That's not even fast for me.
Okay.
So the Selenium IDE is in a separate repository inside of the GitHub organization for Selenium, and so we label issues a bit differently, and so we don't have like the nice tags of like good first contribution or things like that. We should, and that would be easier when we do actually merge into the mothership repo. But as far as contributions, we're always looking for any sort of documentation. We've recently redid a lot of the documentation for Selenium IDE, and there are things that are still missing that would be helpful. There's also, I'm sure, things that we've gotten wrong in terms of just bad grammar or just obviously missing things like the challenge of writing documentation as the person who made it is like there's a lot of assumed knowledge. So it's very easy for us to forget something that is, it's obvious to us and it's not obvious to other people. So just as far as helping get for the getting started experience, that's always helpful. We're always looking for contributions in any shape, documentation or code. With the recent addition of code export, that's the biggest area, I think, we're looking for contributions. So if you have experience in a programming language with specific language bindings and you want code export to support those, the way that we architected code export was to make it as approachable as we could for people to contribute additional languages. So you don't really have to know much about how code export works. You just have to contribute pretty much the code that you want to see in the exported file. So that's the biggest area, I think. Yeah, and I think that's it from my end.
Diego?
I would say that we need help so people can help us tidy up things in the way that when you approach the Selenium website, you see one very old looking website and you see a different URL with documentation. Sometimes you see things duplicated in both websites, so it would be nice to have people who have a fresh look and say, this is a complete mess. You could go this way or that way. If you want to help, I commit myself that you can approach me and I can guide you how to send the pull requests and how to make the changes. And a second thing that would be great is that if you have time to help us troubleshoot existing issues and open pull requests, that would be really good because we get quite often pull requests for documentation or content of their website or even code, and we take too long to review them. So at least if someone can say, I had a look at this looks okay, or you can even make comments to the code, that would be really good because that would save time from us to actually give feedback to the ones who want to contribute. So I think those two things are the main points where you need help. So if you want to contribute to documentation, and the content of the website, I commit myself that you just approach me and I guide you how to do that.
So the Ruby bindings are very fortunate. I think we have the most active contributors of any of the bindings right now. It's myself, Alex Rodionov has been doing most of the work the last couple of years. Thomas Walpole just joined us from the Capybara project, and Lucas Tierney helps us periodically. That being said, there's still a lot of things that are not optimized in the Ruby code right now that I am heads down working on. There's a lot of specifications and tests that could be written that aren't a lot of specifications and tests that aren't, this is not even fast, yeah.
It's fine.
I get too enthusiastic. There are a lot of tests that could be written that have not yet been written that we could use help with. That's usually my recommendation or my request for starting with a project is, can you run our tests and let's see what's there, what's passing, what's failing. I guarantee we've got tests that are probably not passing in like Windows 10 or something that we just don't test against on a regular basis because I have a Mac and Travis is on Linux, and so things like that. There's a lot of room for help with that. I also want to throw out there are a lot of other projects that I'm involved with that work with Selenium, like the WebDrivers gem, which manages drivers, the Water project, which is a test library based on top of Selenium, and as I referenced earlier, Nerodia, which is a Python port of Water. So there's a lot of different things that are out there that if you're interested in working on anything in that space, I've had a lot of fun working with it and would love to work with anyone who thinks they might also have a lot of fun working on it.
Right. There's a lot of work to be done. Help with friendly locators would be good. Help with distributed tracing and making sure we have implemented that in a consistent way across the code base would be good. Help with our implementation of Docker, that would be good. Help with our implementation of the Chrome debugging protocol, that would be good. We are planning on moving from using Jetty as the primary web server that we use to Netty. Help with that would be good. Our build system is currently a weird mishmash of a bunch of different technologies. We would like to move to Bazel. Help with that would be good. We have dozens of open pull requests. Help triaging those and help figuring out which one of those we need to apply. That would be good. We also have a large number of issues open on the website, on GitHub. Normally, the way we solve the problem when we get to about this number is we change hosting provider because the hosting provider goes down or goes away, and we declare bug bankruptcy, and life is sweet. It looks like GitHub is here to stay. So some help actually figuring out our bugs, that would be really good. Improving our usage of Travis would be amazing because we kind of brutalize it at the moment. You put in one change and we run a lot of tests, most of which do not need to be run. Like if you change the Ruby bindings, you probably don't need to rerun all the Java tests, and yet we do. I mean, that's just in the Java tree. Come and find me and I can give you a list as long as my arm is of things that need to be done.
So, from the .NET bindings perspective, I have a couple of areas of the project that can use some help. The first is with the .NET bindings, especially with the Selenium 4 alpha release that got released literally 10 minutes before I walked up here. Having people pull it, use it, find out where we've messed things up, because I'm sure there's some things that have gotten messed up in there, would be wonderful, especially since in the 4.0 alpha, a lot of the internals of the bindings have been completely changed and rewritten. So that's something that really does need some exercising. Also in the .NET space, in the Selenium 4 alpha, some things have been removed that have been moved to a companion project, and in particular I'm talking about the expected conditions class and the page factory class have been moved out to a separate project. They are no longer provided as part of the .NET bindings, and I have been looking for someone to take over the maintenance of that for about 8 or 9 months now, and every time I have mentioned it, I always get a couple of people who say, oh, I'd love to take that over. And then I say, okay, well, the first step is join me on the Selenium IRC or Slack channel, and we can talk about some of the details. And at that point, I rarely ever hear from people again at that point. They don't follow through from there. So that's another thing that could help a great deal. From the Internet Explorer driver side of things, the biggest challenge that I have with issues that are reported for the Internet Explorer driver is concise reproduction cases for the issue that's been filed. Oftentimes, the issue that's filed gives me the Selenium code that doesn't work, but the web page, but they don't provide a web page against which to run this. Now, there are often reasons for that because they're running it against an internal application and they don't feel like they can publicly surface that code, and people don't have the time or the energy or the know-how to strip down their reproduction case to something that can be posted publicly. So if you see issues that are tagged with the IE tag in the issue tracker that do not have a fully simple reproducible test case, if you can provide one of those test cases, then we can go and fix those issues. So those are the places where, from my areas of the project, I probably need the most help with, at least at the moment.
Oh, I just had a thought that we have at my open source app, the Internet, which is useful I use it for people to have reproducible test cases.
I use it for demos all the time.
Excellent. So I invented the Internet, and for this moment right here.
Should I call you Al?
So I'm basically encouraging contributions or people to ping me with issues to the Internet. If there's an issue or if you need help building a reproducible test case, I'm happy to help make that happen if I know what the case is. If I can get enough information to say, I see the thing you need, it doesn't exist in the Internet, I'm always looking to add additional cases to it, either sending a pull request with code or sending a feature request, basically, and I'm happy to work on adding it. So
we have about 6 minutes left, so I'd like to finish Manoj and Kazu, make sure they get their time.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things that can be done apart from all that has been shared. The things that I could think of, I think Diego already touched upon the documentation part, but still, if you see on the keynote, we released a new refresh website. So when it's going to be hosted on the new domain, there's going to be a lot of migration that needs to happen with the website content itself and also the documentation part. We would need a huge help on that. So if anyone is interested, please contact us and we'll be gladly able to help you. And also we help you to contribute back to the project. On the conference, I'm touching about different areas that's been missed at least, as I've been putting my legs on different areas within the project. So with the conference, been with the organizing team for about 5-6 years now, and there's been again a lot of help that we need. Currently it's Marcus, Andrew out here, myself, Ashley, Lydia, who's been joining you as one of the organizing members. And if you look at Selenium Conference every year, is close to 300 to 400 submissions we have every year, and it's been getting real tough qualifying the ones that on the stage. Maybe the top 20 or 30 that we would want to, actually have it on the stage. So talk selection, yes, we would need some help on that. And if we're organizing a conference, let's say the next one, Am I supposed to say the next one?
London is the next one.
Yeah, okay, cool. It's been revealed. So the next one is going to be London, and for those of you who's listening, and if you're in London who are local, and if you want to provide some ground support, yes, that will be helpful. And that's with the conference. And speaking of the bindings, the JavaScript bindings.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering how everyone missed that.
Well, they
JavaScript.
are owning parts of the project, and none of us own those JavaScript
Right.
bindings, so good catch.
Yeah, I think I can talk on a bit because I used to work a lot with JSON labor, and I contributed a tiny bits of pieces to the JavaScript bindings, which is not the most important bits, but still, contribution counts. So I used to closely work with JSON, triaging the issues, just like what Jim mentioned, and used to help him a lot, and we used to close bugs together. And if you look at JavaScript bindings, JSON has been not active at the moment, and we might need more support. So if you're a person who knows JavaScript and wants to fiddle with most of the promises, you're most welcome. And we are looking for contributors for the JavaScript bindings. Yeah.
Kazu?
Me is mainly Appium side, but yeah, mainly almost same. The documentation is very helpful. We actually have the documentation in central our repository, and each binding on each repositories, and central repository have some sample code. And a couple of months ago, I checked all of the documentations, but I already know that I already missed that some sample doesn't work. So if you find such wrong case or find a to-do thing, yeah, we have many to-do marked documentations, so if you find a good way to fix that, and that is very helpful. And one big thing is window adoptions, and we got many issues which doesn't work on the only Windows, but I only have Mac, and actually I started to run CI on Azure on Windows servers, especially rebinding. So on rebinding, the binding already can run on Linux environment and Windows environment for per PL. So hopefully implementing such environment and make sure that Windows stuff, and if you find some wrong in only Windows case, then hopefully it's very helpful if you can help us to make sure the change. We can guess and we can change the code, but our contributors have no Windows environments, so the only thing I can do, very easy can do, is ask the guy, can you check that this code on your Windows? So hopefully don't hesitate to check our request. That is very helpful for us.
I hear Titus's boss runs on a PC. Maybe you can help out. Okay, we are out of time. There are about 23 questions I did not get to on the Slido. Because I was going for thoroughness, not... I think anyone on this group would love to speak a little bit after. We're going to stay here a bit, and we'll be glad to talk. I think we should probably consider publishing an FAQ, basically, because these are very, very good questions.
Have we already talked about the Slack and the IRC channels?
We have not talked about the Slack.
I just want to put out there www.seleniumhq.org/slack/ We'll get you onto the Slack channel.
Easy.
It is mirrored with the IRC channel on Freenode, which is #Selenium.
#Selenium.
And everyone is very friendly on that site. That's how I started with the project, is I just started talking to people on there. Simon's only made at least 2 people cry that I know of. That's it. No more than that.
He's been doing it for a very long time. That's a pretty good.
That was sarcasm. That might be lost in translation. Sorry. Just to clear.
No, that was sarcasm.
Simon does not make people cry. Simon is very helpful and generous with his time when people are on the channel, and it's a great place to get to know people and have conversations.
You weren't supposed to tell anyone that I cried, Titus.
Yes,
it's okay. You use a Windows machine.
And we did, and we glossed over a little bit of something there. The Selenium IRC channel is on Freenode. It is #Selenium, and the conversations on IRC and Slack are mirrored to each other's to each other's platforms. So if you type something on Slack, we'll see it on IRC. If you type something on IRC, we'll see it on Slack as well. So whichever one you're more comfortable with, that's how you get a hold of us.
I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you hosting us in your beautiful country and allowing us to have this panel and this conference for these days. It's been a dream come true. We've been working on this for years, and over 2 years, and it's one of the pleasures of my life that we've been able to put this together. Am I getting ahead of you, Nozomi? Okay, and that's it. What? Oh yeah. Oh, we have some gifts for those of you who were the organizers. Yeah, just some little things for you guys. So we'll distribute these. But I just wanted to say. Yeah. Gifts for the organizers.
I understand.
Okay. Some candy, some sweets.
Oh, thank you.
We have some more.
Chocolate
Yeah.
and almond.
Yeah.
Chocolate and almond. Thank you.
Yeah. Was that the thing?
Yeah, thank you.
Closing.
Yeah, okay. Now let's move to closing. Yeah. Yeah, Selenium conference in Tokyo is also my dream. Yeah, I'm very happy. Thank you. So at the closing, I must say thank you for many people. First, of course, I must say huge thanks to our wonderful sponsor. Yeah, without this sponsor, of course, we can't have such big conference. So from the beginning, as Kaz said, yeah, whether actually we can accept enough sponsor, we can attract enough sponsors is very unclear. So, but thanks to many sponsors, so one by one joined our sponsor team. So I'm really thanks to all sponsors. Approve? Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. And it's also another thanks we couldn't introduce at the opening. First thanks is volunteer member from Wendy Clark.
Wendy, stand up, Wendy.
Thank you. She helped our reception and QA and time management. Thank you. And also many other companies. Staff support is from Event Rangers in Japan. All of companies are actually Japanese company. Staff support is from Event Rangers, and interpretation is KY Trade. KY Trade. When I have interpretation international event, we always ask this company. I think this is very good translation company. Yeah. And this venue hall is Tower Hall, Funabori. This hall gives us very friendly support. And the food and venue is from Matsuya Salon. I hope all people are satisfied with their food.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and the video is from Panda Studio. Yeah, actually, when we decide satellite streaming live, it is maybe just one month ago. So, and from this until today, we encountered lots of troubles. So, actually, behind this scene, And today and also yesterday, we managed lots of trouble, so I hope you couldn't notice. You didn't notice. Yeah. And the photo is Venus photogenic team. This is cameraman. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, his excellent photo will be uploaded later. And as for trip and visa, top tours. Thank you. Sorry. And from the wrap up, maybe I must say a little about Selenium London. So maybe from organizer.
Yes, we're having a Selenium conference in London. Those dates are incorrect. October 7th and 8th, I believe, are the dates in London.
Sorry, yeah.
This is today.
This is today.
This is today, right. We just did that.
Sorry,
yes.
Too busy. So
Yes.
that's conference.
If only there was a QA somewhere who could look at these things.
I apologize. Sorry.
Yeah, he reviewed the slides with me.
Yeah.
That's what you get what you pay for.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And photo and videos, as I said earlier, photo and video will be uploaded later. Yeah. And okay. So such photo will be uploaded. Yes.
Yes. So one question that came that I didn't get to read that I did want to ask at some point was somebody asked, same time next year?
Next year?
Well, the question broader is no, not next year.
Yeah,
but
next year.
Can we come back?
If you wish.
We would wish.
We will try to do so again.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. For such future days, I'd like to attend all attendees again. So
yes.
I'm waiting. Yeah. Okay. As organizer, do you have any comment?
Any comment? Oh, right. That's easy. The important thing is we hope everyone enjoy yesterday and today. We heavily worked for this outside our regular work. So all organizers and sponsors and other supporters spend many time to this conference. So we hope you enjoyed yesterday and today. And we want to say thank you very much. That's it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. See you next time.